You can call me Luigi. That's the short version.
Okay. Hello, Luigi. How are you going today?
Very good, Richard. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. E-meet you these days. We call it e-meeting.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So my name is Richard, like you know, and I'm a master's student, not a PhD student, not yet. I'm a master's student at the University of Adelaide in Adelaide, and I'm doing a master's degree in the Global Food and Agricultural Business Program here at the University of Adelaide. And I joined IFAMA a couple months ago, and it's been a roller coaster. It's been really good, and I'm enjoying it so far. And I'm
Great.
actually very honored to be interviewing you today. And just for the people that would view this, I'm going to give them a short introduction of you. And Mr. Gianluigi Zenti is the group's honorary managing director in Italy, where he manages the Italian clientele and is the conduit between Italy and the American operations. He joined them in 1991 as the export area manager for the US, where he was assigned to grow Barilla's America in conjunction with the group MRA. The project was the foundation of the enormous success of the Barilla in America, and has achieved, of the enormous success that Barilla America has achieved ever since in the markets. In 1997, he was promoted to general manager of Barilla America, and in 1999, he became director of the Global Food Service Business Units. He holds the degree in agricultural sciences at the University of Milan and a master's in agricultural economics at the University of Cremona and University of Guelph, Canada. He has also magnified his educational backgrounds with marketing and agribusiness qualifications from Columbia and Harvard Business Schools. So that's a brief blurb about you. And I would like to let you know that the first thing I did when I got to read about you, can you guess the first thing I did when I got to
You,
read
you,
about you?
you ate pasta.
Yes. Yes. That was the first thing. I went to the shops and I got a pack of Barilla pasta, and I had it for lunch today too. It's actually really good. You can tell the quality, you can tell the difference in quality between that pasta and the regular ones we buy. Yeah.
Bravo, bravissimo.
That's a good job you're doing there. So I see you were the former president between 2006 and 2007. And what was your day job at the time? Was it still with the MRA?
No, I basically joined the Barilla Group in
Yeah,
1991, and
yeah,
one of the big challenges of Barilla was to take the pasta business of Barilla, that has been a very strong company in Italy,
okay,
into the US market. And this is a very interesting story, and I tell you this because when we talk about food culture, people don't really understand what food culture means. So very simply, when I went to New York and I
yeah,
did my first presentation with a box of Barilla pasta, spaghetti,
yeah.
to a buyer, he said, listen, Americans want pasta that cooks in 3 minutes and they
Oh,
throw it on the wall
it
when it's
doesn't.
cooked. And if it doesn't stick, they don't eat it because it doesn't cook.
Okay.
So, because pasta was made with soft wheat in America, not durum wheat,
Oh,
like we do make pasta in Italy. So when we talk about food culture, it's basically teaching people how the original product should be made. I mean, we are expert in every region, every country of the product that we make, but we don't spend enough time to teach consumers and people how to really appreciate the product. So that was my first job, and I basically joined IAMA in 2006. And I got to know IAMA because I actually, when I was doing my master's program in Canada,
yeah.
I participated to a couple of conferences in Vancouver and with one of my professor, and that's how I got to know IAMA, and it was, you know, a long-term relationship.
Yeah, that's very beautiful because I also got to know about IFAMA during my master's program. So we have one more thing in common.
Bravo.
Yeah, bravo. So like the IFAMA conference that held during your presidency, what would you say was the highlights of that conference?
Yeah, what we tried to accomplish, Richard, was really to teach the participant of the conference about food culture. Uh, we had the fortune to head the conference in Parma. Parma, it's about 50 kilometers south of Milan,
Okay.
and it's in northern Italy. And it's called the Italian Food Valley because in Parma is where the Parma cheese, the Parma ham, tomatoes, pasta, milk, over 10 billion euros in agricultural value is produced in that small city.
Wow.
So
That's
the
huge.
whole idea was to basically take people, invite people to Parma and get them to understand, I mean, how such a small local product like Parmesan cheese became a $3 billion dollar business.
The price, yeah.
So starting from a very local, very traditional, and maintaining the heritage and the identity. So the product hasn't been changed for hundreds of years.
Hmm.
So I think that that was really one of the key messages. I mean, and showing people that there is the possibility to do unprocessed, traditional food and try to teach people how food should be around. One of the problems with the Parmesan cheese is that, especially in the US, but in many other countries, more than 70% of the cheese is fake. It's
Yeah.
called Parmesan, but it's not Parmigiano Reggiano from Italy because the consumer demand the product, but there is no accessibility of this product. So basically, some big industry they took advantage and they just copied the name and they just made it with protein and other components, but it's not, you know, the traditional Parmesan cheese. So this happened also with the pasta. I mean, pasta around the world was not made in Italy. It was pasta made in Iowa or in many other countries
Yeah.
using different recipes.
Yeah.
So I think that one of the advantages was really to tell people to understand the quality of food,
Yeah.
get them to experience where the food comes from, and have them enjoy and live a better quality of life. Because food, it's a big component of your happiness.
True. You know, it's funny because I never knew that the Parma and Parmesan was actually tied to the city in Italy.
Bravo.
I just
That's
thought it
what,
was,
bravo. That's what everybody thinks. I mean,
yeah,
nobody relate the name with where it comes
yeah,
from.
yeah, nobody does. And you know, like when I was in a little bit of research on you, I saw some parts where you talked about if anybody had a map, they would know that spaghetti bolognese is not is not a thing, you know. And it's funny because my flatmates had some spaghetti bolognese that night, and I was telling him, no, that's not a thing. That's not
Yeah,
Italian.
yeah, bravo.
Yeah, so I
No,
think we have
and
a lot of work to do with food culture.
yeah, I think that this is really one of the topics that we try to highlight at this conference, and is one of the big challenges where if all food becomes a commodity, there is no future for the farmers, and the consumers are not going to have pleasures because they don't eat good, tasty, quality food. So the whole job is, whose job is it to train consumers and educate consumers to eat good food?
Yeah,
You can say, oh, it's your mom, it's your family, it's your friend. In reality, I think everybody should do some of this work. I mean, the company should do it, but sometimes small farmers, they don't have competencies or the money to train. But if we do the association, the companies, the institution, the public institution, and the health organization, because at the
yeah,
end of the day, food contribute to your health. And if you
Absolutely.
don't eat well, you eat too much sugar, you are going to get diabetes, and this is going to cost big money for the society.
Health system. Yeah. Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you very much for that. I think henceforth, food culture is something I'll take seriously now, and we at IFAMA and other associations should actually continue to take seriously. Yeah.
Good.
So I'll move on to the next question now, and I would like to know some areas where you've contributed to building IFAMA as an organization.
Okay, I was always impressed about IFAMA because there is this fusion between academics and companies and food companies and agribusiness companies. And this is what makes IFAMA unique. I mean, it's really the combination of these two components. I think that my biggest contribution was really to take the food end of the agribusiness, because IFAMA has always been very focused on the production side, and it pretty much stopped and when the product is produced. So I think the objective is to involve also the consumption end, and how important it is to engage the consumers, teach the consumers, and reduce waste also at the consumer level. So the last part of the chain.
Yeah. You know, I totally agree with you. Then I think that's really good because like right now at uni, I do a part-time job with LG, and it's very interesting to see how much investment is put into educating the consumers, you know, so they know what to buy and how to derive so much satisfaction from what is bought. But in the food sector, we don't do a lot of that. Like we teach farmers on how to process their food, reduce waste, get the highest yields from their farms, but we don't talk about how to get this food off the shelves, you know, how to make the consumers come to the food and buy, you know, these products. I think it's very big.
But and I think it's so important that, you know, many times food don't have access to consumers because through the supermarket, there is slotting fees. It's very difficult to get on the shelf. And even online, it's not so easy to sell food online. It's growing, but it's not growing fast enough. It's still less than 5% of sales of food is done online. So I think it's a big challenge for the future. And this is where IFAMA can really bring knowledge and discussion about these topics.
Yeah. Talking about the future, we'll move on to the next question. You know, the title of this year's event is Food for the Future. And what do you believe needs to change in order for us to adequately feed people in the future?
Okay, I think that there are three major global issues. One is we don't have enough fresh water. We have less than 50% of the fresh water that we need on the planet. We are producing too many CO2, too much carbon emission, and we are consuming a lot of fertile land. Those are three. So right now, the world is using almost 2 planets in terms of resources. So it's unsustainable. We need to do something, or we are not going to have access to food in the future. So, and one of the things that we need to do is clearly redesign the way we consume, reducing waste, but also changing what we eat. Right now, we are eating so much protein, so much animal protein that is unsustainable, because to produce meat, you consume so much fresh water. And if the whole world will eat like the Western world is eating, we will not have resources on the planet to just feed everybody. So I'm not saying we should all become vegetarian, but we should basically try to consume more vegetables and complex complex carbohydrates, and basically the base of the pyramid that is less, is more sustainable food.
Yeah.
The other key, the key message is there is this theory: the food is like fashion. Every 5 to 7 years, you have a new diet that comes up. Before we had the Atkins diet, then we had the South Beach diet, then we went to the Paleo diet. Now we are into the keto diet. So sometimes you want to eat more fat, then sometimes you must eat more protein, then you have to stay away from carbohydrates. I mean, it looks like nobody knows what really is the right diet. So bottom line is, all of these are phenomenon that are, it's really like food as fashion. You need to come up with something new, and you just try to go off and do business out of this new trend that you are creating. But none of this trend really has, scientific evidence, or they are really sustainable long term. Right. What we have seen, especially in Italy, where the food that the Italians are eating, it's a very local food and is very tied up to the local area of origin. Like in Parma, the food that we eat in Parma is very different than the food that you eat in Sicily, or the food that you eat in Naples or in Pisa. Yeah. Because we are very related to the territory. And yes, we can, sometimes we like to eat the Sicilian food, but we go back to eat the local food. So I think on a global basis, we need to have a balanced diet, and also respecting your health, but also the planet. And the way to respect the planet is to have a shorter supply chain and value more the local food.
Yeah. Shorter supply chains and volume of local food. Talking about taking you back to fresh water, having less than 50% of the fresh water we need. I worked on, after my university days, I worked on a fish farm in Nigeria. And it's funny because a lot of people think aquaculture is actually very sustainable, but I beg to differ, because I worked on a farm, on a freshwater fish farm, that actually wasted at least 100,000 liters of water in a day. And I come to Australia and I take a course in water governance and water security, and I was completely shocked by all of the things I found out, that we were actually running on, using our reserves, that we don't have a lot of water, and we're actually using desalinated water here in Australia, to keep up with the water demands. And I think water security is something a lot of people don't talk about. A lot of people don't know about this, and I think we have to do a lot of work in mainstreaming the issues we have in.
You made an excellent point, Richard. I mean, that's exactly what people think. Think, if you produce your own fish, you are actually creating a sustainable business model, but you are not taking in consideration the whole impact of how much water you use. So bottom line is, we don't really need to eat this, more and more fish protein just because they say that omega-3 is good for you and you eat fish every day.
Yeah.
I mean, the bottom line is, we don't really need fish every day. We can enjoy fish, good fish, once a month, twice a month, and that's more than enough. But it goes back to having a sustainable production, but as well as a sustainable culture in people's mind.
You're absolutely right. Thank you for your thoughts on that. So I'm going to move on to the next question now, and it says, what are your thoughts on how IFAMA can better bring stakeholders together to fulfill its mission of improving the global food system?
I think IFAMA has been the first association to really answer some of the tough questions. They started in 1990 by visionary people. And I think they just need to continue doing what they started doing. I mean, solving or giving the vision of what could be the solution, because the IFAMA people has the competencies. Yeah. If you think about outside of an association like IFAMA, there are many organizations, but many of those organizations, they are self-professing a prophecy.
You're right.
Because if you work for the large corporation,
Yeah.
they basically want them to just say what they like to hear. Consider that right now 70% of the food is produced by 10 food companies. That's pretty scary if you think about it.
You're right.
So we don't want a very risky food system. We have seen with this pandemic that there was no food in the supermarkets. Now, thanks God, pasta sales went through the roof because it's a very storable and you can eat pasta and it's very simple. So for us, it was a great opportunity because pasta sales were. But going back to the we need to build a sustainable system, and IFAMA can really be the one that show the way, because there are not too many, nobody is really controlling the association. The association is not preaching what people want to hear, but they say the right things.
You're right. It's funny because I learned a new lesson on Saturday about the law of inverse proportion, inverse relevance, something like that. And it talks about how the more you talk about something, the less you do anything about it, because there are a lot of these organizations that talk about development, sustainability, but they are not sustainable. They're not developing anything, and we have a lot of them out there. And I'm very happy to be in an organization that is not one of those bodies.
Bravo. And if you think about the green and this, exactly what you said, Richard, everybody want to be green. They buy green certificate. So you can say I'm 100% sustainable. That's all, it's not right.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I think that's the end of the questions from us today. Is there anything you would love to add as guidance to the future leadership of IFAMA?
I'm actually extremely pleased that we have some new blood, new people like you involved. I think you guys, as I was involved for the first time in IFAMA in Vancouver, in Canada, in 1980, I think it was 1989, 1987, 1989, when I discovered that there are people that thinks about the future of the planet and how to make the life of people better. So I'm very, very pleased that IFAMA is involving younger people, and I really believe that you guys can be the new future of the association and make the world a better place where we can live.
Yeah,
so
thank you.
Be confident and become a good food culture ambassador, Richard.
Thank you very much. We also hope we can actually get access to you for guidance, because like according to a Nigerian adage, there's something that Nigerians say, that no matter how much new clothes a young person has, he can never have as much old clothes, as an older person. And the old clothes here means experience, So we'll be tapping into your experience from time to time, and we hope we can rely on you for that.
More than pleased. And I leave you with one sentence that I learned from the founder of the Barilla company. He always said to his people, listen, the only things you should keep in mind is go ahead with courage.
Go ahead with courage, yeah.
Courage is one of the most important values. If you are worried, nothing gets done.
Sure.
So when you see that something is difficult, that's when you need to take your courage and go for it.
Yeah. Thank you very much.